I'm Darren Rudkin. I'm here in my hometown, London, to film this first of our Purposeful Work series. I'm here to meet a colleague of mine, a friend, Gary Lubner, who's been CEO of Belron for over 20 years, for over 2 decades, and in that time has led the company across 6 continents, 40 countries, 30,000 people. In that time, he's built this incredible organization, which I think really fits the title of being a purpose pioneer. So I'm here to interview him to find out what it's been like to be at the helm of such an organization, and to see if we can learn from him about what it takes to create a purposeful organization on that sort of scale. Hi, Gary. Thanks so much for doing this, by the way. Yeah. So, I mean, here you are, just a few months having, completed your time at Belron.
Yeah.
You were there for many years.
35
years. I mean, I know it's a bit of a tough question to start with, but I mean, could you tell the audience a bit about your time there, like your career there? What did it entail?
So 35 years is a long time. So I suppose the first thing is, this is a business that was actually, in the depths of time, started by my grandfather over 100 years ago. And it's evolved over many, many years. And I came over to London, as you can hear, South African accent, 38 years ago to do some further study. And the business was really based in South Africa, and it had just started doing some stuff here in the UK and moving into Europe. And I met the then CEO, my predecessor, and he said, look, why go back to South Africa? There's such exciting things. And so there was always a bit of a calling in terms of, this was a business that was in my blood. Sadly, the family didn't own it anymore, but we were still, my dad was involved. And so I came over here and firstly just started thinking about how we could take a windscreen business, a business that replaced people's windscreens, something that was actually, it was a business that was competing with dealers and garages. So I'm talking now 35 years ago. In those days, if you had your broken windscreen, you just went to your garage and your dealer. You would make an appointment 2 weeks' time. They would take 3 days to do it, and you'd go and collect it. You'd pay a fortune. And we effectively reinvented that whole market. So the market existed, broken windscreens, but the whole way that it was serviced was different. And Autoglass in the UK was really that was what Belron was about. It was Autoglass. It had a few little bits in Belgium and around Europe, 1 or 2 countries. And so my first role was to think about how we could expand into other countries, take this model. Is it replicable? And I just sort of fell into that, absolutely loved that. First few years was really doing the European stuff. And then I thought I needed some real proper business experience. And so I ran Autoglass for 5 years in the mid-90s. And that was really the first time that I was running the business in a real sense. That was here in the UK, yeah, so based up in Bedford. And it was just amazing, because what I started realizing then was actually, in a sense, the fact that we were doing windscreens was almost by the by. We did that brilliantly, but actually what the business was about was, making people's lives a bit easier. So, a windscreen, no one plans to go and buy, no one wakes up in the morning and says, great, I'm going to go and buy a windscreen today. But when it does happen, it's stressful. You don't know what to do. Do I claim from my insurance company? And we took all of that stress away. And so what I realized quite early on was that we actually trying to make a person's day a little bit better. And if, as we were thinking about that, then, the whole thing on customer focus was really important, really making sure that our people were looked after, were motivated, were engaged. And so I learned a huge amount in those days. And I obviously did a reasonable job, because then I was given the responsibility to look after all of Europe, by which stage we were in Germany and France. UK was still the biggest part of that. It was starting to expand, and effectively exactly the same model. And in Europe, particularly in Germany. I mean, the loyalty to the dealers was huge. I mean, you did not get in a, kind of specialist. You went to your BMW dealer, and so that was hard to break in. It took us 9 years, I think, to make any profit there at all. France was similar, Italy was similar. Anyway, so I then looked after Europe for a few years, and then there was a change in the shareholding, and in 2000 I was offered the role of CEO of the business. So at that time, the business was probably turning over about 600 million euros. We probably had about 7,000 or 8,000 people. We were in 6 or 7 countries, and that was my start of my journey as CEO. And then, as you say, 22 years later, or 23 years later, I've now stepped down.
Yeah, in a game that's a bit like the Premier League, isn't it? I mean, CEOs are spinning around.
Exactly.
Yes. So you lasted for 23 years.
Exactly, yes. I was a bit unusual in that sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tales to tell in
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I just wonder, Gary, because of course you and I, we know about Belron and we know its scale, but to the viewers watching, they may not know much about this extremely large company. Yes. So could you just give us a quick minute on who are Belron, so that the listener can sort of anchor in that?
Sure, and it's a good question, and this is a bit of my fault. We've always tried to keep a low profile because I'm just not interested in profile. So both for the business, for myself, for my team. But the truth is, Belron is one of the biggest businesses that no one's ever heard of. So today Belron operates in 40 countries around the world. We do one thing, which is repair and replace automotive glass. But we do that 13 or 14 million times a year across, as I say, 40 countries in the world. We are owned by effectively institutional investors, a big Belgian family company, together with some private equity and sovereign wealth. And the business has grown from those days of when I started. The turnover now is close on 6 billion euros. The market cap, I can talk about that because it's public, is, well, not the market cap, the enterprise value is somewhere north of 21 billion euros. And so if this was a UK listed company, we'd be in the biggest 20 or 30 companies in the UK, similarly Fortune 500 and top companies in Europe. We employ now 32,000 people, and so it's become a big business. But at its core, we're doing exactly the same thing as when we started, which is making a difference for people every day in our little way. And our little way is, well, we turn a shit experience into something, that actually people leave dealing with us feeling, oh, wow, that was actually quite good. That's what we do.
I mean, I just really did want the audience to hear that, Gary. If we talk about your tenureship as a CEO, it's basically this century, isn't it? It is. And if I'm hearing the numbers right, you took it from 600 million revenue of sales to over 6 billion.
Correct.
And
the value that the Belgian company bought into Belron, they valued the company at about 230 million euros in 2000 to now 21 billion. Yeah. So that's 100 times.
It's incredible. 100 times in value.
Yeah.
Now, I think the thing I want the audience to really hear is that actually we're here today to talk about purpose and to talk about you as a purpose pioneer. Really, I've been looking around the world for those leaders who will take a risk, will do things differently. But to anchor that actually this is not a video about performance growth. It's not about that. But I just wanted people listening to know that the performance growth under your tenure has been, it's been enormous. It's been massive.
It's been massive, but I'll just reiterate what you're saying, and I'm sure it'll come out in our story. The numbers for me are actually not the most important thing. It's because they are the result of what we've done. I never set out to say I want to grow the business by 10 times or I want to do 6 billion. That's such limited kind of purpose stuff. But yes, it's interesting because, in our society or whatever, there's, how do you measure? Now, I'm not even saying that it's success. I mean, it's for others to judge whether this is a success story or not. But certainly the numbers do tell a story, and I think they do tell a story that we did something right. It's what did we do right? I think that's much more interesting than just, we've grown from this number to that number. So I'm with you on that.
But even in what you're saying there, that is such that's such a departure from the way businesses are often run, where indeed the target is, let's double our revenue, let's double our profitability, that's often the way it gets framed.
Remember, I've got an MBA.
Yeah.
That's what I was taught.
That's what you were taught in, yeah. We'll come on and look at the MBAs maybe. But it's just really interesting, and I'd say quite a paradigm shift. The very first thing you're talking about is, as stellar as those results were, they weren't the thing actually motivating you.
Not in the slightest.
Not in the slightest. Actually, they were an outcome of something else that you had your attention on.
Correct. And then become an enabler to do even more of that.
Yes.
Because, we've got to admit, when your performance is good, and that allows you to actually double down in some cases, which is exactly what I think we did. Yeah. Because it says, actually, this is working. Yeah. Whatever you're doing, this seems to be working, and it's actually creating some financial benefit. Let's take that and do it again.
So look, here's the thing, Gary. I think a lot of the people that we're working with, that we're talking to, they recognize that there is an invitation here to shift the paradigm of business from, the Friedman inspired, it's all about your shareholder value. And that is really the essence of, in a sense, I would say, that became the purpose of an organization, to create shareholder value. Okay. And so people are starting to explore that, but the pull of that is really strong, the pull of the old ways. And what I hear leaders struggling with, and the way they frame it, is often to say, look, we can be performance orientated, or we can be purpose orientated. Yeah. Now, I know that you don't see it that way. But do you want to describe how you see what is often described as kind of a choice, a binary choice between two ways of leading?
I fundamentally believe that is wrong. And I'm saying that because I'm old and grey. It's not like I'm some messiah that's coming down and preaching something that I haven't. So I've lived through those things. I've lived through those years of going after a budget. That was the objective. So this ridiculous notion of setting a budget in October or November for the following year, and then I did it religiously, and that's it. That is what your purpose is, to hit your budget. And the fact that the market changes dramatically, either up or down, irrelevant. The fact that you're faced with all sorts of irrelevant, because the only purpose is about hitting that budget. And I don't know, we'll get on to that, but how did I start shifting that? I think the interesting, sorry, because that's not your question. I'll come back to how I started shifting. The budget or the plan or the result or the financial result can only be that. It stands to, you can't just say, I'm going to get that result, and think that the louder or longer you say it, the more likely no, it's what are you actually going to do? How are you going to go about running your business, thinking about your people, thinking about your customers, thinking about all your stakeholders? What are the things that you're going to do that are going to be different, that are going to be better, that are going to be more efficient, which if you do all of those things, trust me, the results will follow. We are a perfect example of that. And I think that there are other organizations who would be perfect examples of that. And I think by just following numbers and just chasing that thing, or this idea that your purpose here is shareholder value, I'm sorry, it doesn't ring true to me. It just does, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Gary, do you have experience where you're having your attention on purpose actually increased your capacity to be profitable?
No question.
Yeah,
no question.
How did that work though? I think the listener is going to be interested. How did you get that?
How did I get it?
It's like a virtuous cycle, isn't it? How did you get that?
It's a virtuous cycle. Yeah. It's a flywheel. The more you go. The harder you go, the better it gets. So listen, I think, and excuse me if I don't exactly answer your question, but and I don't want to sound like a preacher, but the truth is, it all starts with you. It all starts with you as a business leader, and I've got a lot to thank you personally for that, because if you remember when we first met, I was struggling a bit with my own personal purpose, for both personal reasons, but as well in the business. I was seeing this business and it was growing and it was doing well, but I was struggling with where's this heading and where's that going. And we did a lot of work on why is it that you like going to work? Is it because you love windscreens, or that you love profit, or you love growing sales? And obviously the answer to that was none of those. I mean, despite the fact I've been in the business for 35 years, do not let me near a windscreen. I would struggle.
Including your own.
Including my own. What I loved, and what you pulled out of me, what I loved was that every day I went into work, I felt like in my role and in my position that I could make a difference. And I could make a difference in so many different ways. I could make a difference for my team around me, the way I pitched up, the way I turned up, the way the choices that I made about what we were going to do or what we were going to discuss. I certainly could, through my business, make a difference for millions of customers every day. Simple things like saying, well, let's offer people windscreen wipers when they're having their windscreen. Well, the amazing thing is, on that particular thing, people loved that. They felt that we were taking care of them. So I could make a difference to shareholders. Yes, I could make a difference to shareholders, because actually if we got our people engaged and our customers happy, I knew that the results would follow. We would create that competitive advantage and be able to do that. And so I knew that I could do that. Society, we could make a difference for that, because it was a deep held belief within our business, certainly from my family, that giving back was a good thing, and that businesses had a responsibility. And what I was amazed about is when I started making that part of the DNA of Belron, how our people just they got so excited about that stuff. And there's no question that meant that they came into work feeling better about themselves, better about the company that they worked for. So it was about me first. And so when I realized actually I'm here on earth to try and make a difference to people, that sort of changed everything. Yeah. And then all I did was, and you remember that, I replicated that with my team. And I sat with my team and I said to them, guys, I want you to, we were in Miami, I remember, and I said to them, overnight, just come back tomorrow morning and tell me why you come to work every day. Yeah. And it was amazing. Firstly, the alignment, but also the differences. But it was, no one said anything about windscreens. Everyone was about, I love developing people. I love seeing how people can grow. I love making people smile, all of those sort of things. And so we started realizing, well, we've got something here. And then we did one last thing, which was we went out into the whole business. And we went, I think, to 9 countries with a video camera, and we asked people from technicians to call center operators to senior managers to branch managers, why do you come to work every day? And we had hundreds of interviews. Not one person, not one, said, I love putting polyurethane on a car, or I love the tools that we use in fixing a windscreen. Every comment was something about, I love it when people come in really distressed and leave the branch with a smile on their face. I love working with my colleagues. I love the team that I'm in. I love solving problems for people. Yeah. All of those things. And so what we realized actually was this whole purpose thing was in all of us. Yeah. That's why you came to work. They didn't come to work. No one said, I come to work to get a paycheck even. I mean, even at the lowest level in our organization, everybody wants to come in and do something that they feel purposeful about and that they feel like at the end of the day. And so out of that, I mean, it wasn't a very scientific thing, but out of that emerged, if you like, Belron's purpose, which is still there today, which is about making a difference with real care. We wanted to add the care bit because that's what came out from our people. Yeah. And when we realized that then became the North Star. Mm. And, you asked earlier about, does that improve and does that help you get better performance? Absolutely. Because when when you then faced with some tough decisions, you just ask that question: are we making a difference here? And if the answer, and what kind of difference is this? Are we, because, and even in very tough decisions, laying off staff, every company at points or whatever, as one brutal example, are we making a difference? Now that's tough. Are we making a difference for our people? Well, if you do it right, you are. You're giving people the opportunity to not die in a business. If you treat them well, are we making a difference for our... Yes, we'll become more... Now, listen, we didn't do a lot of this at all, but I can tell you we did. Acquisitions were another example. Should we buy this business in the United States? Well, if we do, would we be making a difference? And again, we go through those. So it became a very, very powerful tool for us at a very high level, strategic kind of level. And that certainly was very helpful for us.
I'm tracking the threads of different things you're saying about this particular journey you've had. The first thing you were really clear about was, it starts with me.
Definitely.
You were the CEO, you recognized that.
Yeah.
And you were going through your own sort of purpose. I mean, crisis is probably too strong a word, but you were...
But I was purpose. Listen, let's be very honest here.
Yeah.
Whenever we started, 10 years ago, 12, I could have retired then. This was not about me trying to make more money, or certainly wasn't about me trying to create more wealth or anything.
Those traditional things that might keep a person going. I mean, you ticked it all, really.
Yeah, exactly.
You were looking for something, but you were very clear it starts with me, and you were asking yourself quite basic questions, weren't you? Why am I doing it? Why is it? What's meaningful to me now? Exactly. So you connected to that. And that was the first thing. You realized that was the first thing. And then it seems to me, if I'm tracking you, the second thing you did was you got your close team around you and you asked them the same questions. And you were in Miami and they went away overnight. I'm sure it was a very, engaged and energized meeting. People saying, and I'm sure as well, knowing you, that you created a space for them to answer it. Yes. Authentically.
Totally.
Just really, what is your real answer? Not the answer I want you, that you think I want to hear.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely. But then also challenged. So I remember one of my team did say, I go to work every day because I want to make a lot of money. Yeah. Someone did say that. Yeah. And so we then explored, what does that mean? And what it actually meant was, he had come from a background, really poor background. And so actually that wasn't his purpose, to make a lot of money. His purpose was to look after his family, to make sure that his family and future generations wouldn't have to have the same upbringing that he had. That's not making a lot of money. It's a different kind of... And so you just keep asking why and trying to get that purpose higher and higher. And so his purpose was actually, I come to work every day because I want to create a future. I want to create a different future. Yeah. Well, isn't that a brilliant purpose? Yeah. And this is the way, So, yes, you're right. We did do that.
It is my experience, by the way, over and over, that when you hear those purposes that are around money or targets, that it doesn't take much questioning about, and suddenly someone is connected to something far bigger and more meaningful to them.
And it gets there. Because then they say, okay.
Yeah.
And definitely.
So there was you.
Yeah.
Then there was your team.
Yeah.
Then you went out with your cameras. So this is going back how many years now? Are we?
20. 10, 12 years.
10, 12 years ago. You went out with your cameras. You really were asking this very simple, profound question.
Yeah.
Why do you come?
Why do you come to work?
What's meaningful to you?
Yeah.
What matters to you?
Correct.
Just to use plain English. What matters
to you?
Yeah. In this work, not generally, but in this what you're doing. Yeah. And you really just listened to that. You got clear themes. It wasn't about what was actually being done. It was about the difference underneath that. It was about problem solving. It was about care. And I'm guessing, Gary, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but when you were talking about your time running Autoglass in the UK for the first time, You said earlier on that you very quickly realized that this was a company that was about making a difference in people's lives. You know,
Just
making
didn't
that.
articulate it like that, but yes.
Yeah,
you're right.
that was your first insight.
Definitely.
But I'm guessing then that came back
Very
in
much
spades when you
Very
started
much
speaking to people.
It came back so clearly. And I think that's interesting. One of the things about purpose for me, it's there, by the way. People often say, geez, it's amazing what you've done at Belron, and I wish I could do the same. Well, you can.
Yeah.
Because actually all I did was, with the help of people like you and with spending a bit, you just unlock what's already there. And you're right. I'd worked out, actually just focus on customers and people, and the rest actually does come about.
Yeah.
Now, if you then sort of unpack that, well, that's about purpose, isn't it?
Yeah. You're quite adamant about that. You're saying to the listener, purpose is there.
Yes.
It's there, it's present.
Yes.
But it's about creating, it's about asking, it's about listening, it's about creating, it's about having that matter, I guess, not just the metric
Precisely.
or the result, having it matter.
Yeah. And doing that hard work, because it's hard. When I say hard work, it's not long work, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It's emotional sometimes. It's quite, it challenges all your preconceptions. It challenges that traditional Friedman kind of model.
Yeah.
And so, and you challenge yourself about that. And the classic things are, well, it's all very well you saying this is important, but you haven't been in a business that's not growing, or that's bullshit. I have. And actually, I find my purpose stuff much more powerful in tough times than I do in the good times when the business is growing.
Say more about that. Why do you have that such a strong conviction on that?
Well, let me maybe give you examples rather. So we decided, now rather stupidly at one point, to try and get into a whole lot of other services in Belron. Yeah. So we were thinking...
By stupidly, you mean it didn't work?
Correct. Otherwise, I'd say brilliantly. And so we thought, you know what, we've cracked this. We've cracked this service business. So, you focus on customers and people, and we're doing windscreens. Why can't we do body repairs, or why can't we do home repairs, leaking pipes or roofs or whatever? And we even did test a little bit the purpose stuff. So we said, well, would this be making it? Yes, it would be making it. And could you? Yeah. So we talked us even using the purpose. But then when we started trying to do it, well, guess what? It was not straightforward. And like many companies who try and, go off in another direction, it is bloody hard to do. And so as a leader, as the CEO, I realized about 2 years into this was in 2016, 2017, this is not working. I think my old self would have just said, that's what we said, that's what we're going to do, and we got to get through this, the sort of macho alpha approach to business. Well, I didn't do that. And I really went back and said, why did we try to do this? Are we being true to our real purpose here? Are we making a difference? Well, actually, when you started challenging that, well, we weren't. Because I was finding this was not fun. This was not good. And it would have been very easy, honestly, because it wasn't like we were hemorrhaging money or anything. We could have kept going. I realized this is not the thing to do. So we had to take some really tough decisions. We had to exit some businesses. We had to close some businesses. But I promise you, having my purpose stuff and having that ability to work out where I was personally, what system I was in, how I was trying to feel about things, made all the difference. It made the decisions so easy, so clear, gave me such clarity, as tough as they were. And so when I say, when's it been the most useful, it's actually been in the tougher times than it has been in. So that would be one example. Other examples are bringing in new shareholders, stressful, due diligence, people asking you questions which you get irritated with because you think they should either know them or you don't want to answer them. Just taking that step back and saying, why are they doing this? It's not them, it's you. I'm being triggered by all sorts of different things which I shouldn't be. That was so helpful then, so helpful. And we ended up with great shareholders, brilliant partners, and we've gone and conquered the world as a result.
Yeah. So you're giving these different examples of businesses not working, difficult decisions to close businesses, lay people off, difficult decisions around new shareholders, not easy things to do. You're saying in those difficulties, in those tough choices, you've found having that connection to your purpose even more
critical. Honestly, I can't emphasize it enough. Critical. I'm telling you, I would not be sitting here talking to you about this if I didn't have that stuff. I think we would have gone down a whole lot of wrong roads.
I mean, you're starting to talk about something here which I think we should unpick a bit for the listener in this, because when leaders particularly are talking about purpose, I think they're much more comfortable often talking about an organization's purpose. And so it's sort of very macro, isn't it? Our purpose is almost like a new version of mission statements in some way, but instead of saying mission, we're saying purpose.
Exactly.
So we have this sort of macro purpose or big P purpose, as sometimes it gets called. You're talking about that, and Belron has that.
Yeah, we do have that.
You've told us the story of that. But I think now you're starting to speak about something that's more personal and micro.
And leader is about leadership.
About leadership.
Yeah.
So that kind of, you're talking about when you were making these decisions, you had your personal purpose.
Correct.
Correct. So these two elements of purpose, we're using the same word.
Yes.
One is
Very
about
different.
corporate, one is about personal and leadership.
Yeah.
How are they different? And I suppose my question is, how do you link them? How do you see the relationship between those two elements of purpose?
I'll try and answer that because I think I know the answer of how we link them. So I've got a thing that I talk to new leaders coming into the business, and I say to them, if you look at our business, and even for your viewers, it's not complicated. We're not doing nuclear physics here. You've got a broken windscreen that you need fixed. And if I explain that to any group, probably even of high school people, kids, and I explained our industry and our business, and I said, come up with a winning business strategy, I bet you, for sure, they would say things like, well, you should have a brand, you should have branches all over the country, you should probably have a call center, you should get relationships with insurance companies, you should have really good technicians, and all of which correct, 100% right.
They sort of make your business model.
They'd make our business model in an hour.
Yeah.
And so the question that I always have been interested in, so if it's that easy, and it is that easy, if it's that easy, we talked about figures earlier. So our sales are 6 billion euros. Do you know what the second biggest business in the world in our industry, their sales are? It's 140 million. 140 million. Yeah. Now, there is no, there's no other explanation other than this one, which is what is the difference between that and that? The only thing that can be different are the people and fundamentally the leaders, the leadership. How do you, because you're doing the same thing. There is we haven't got any patterns on windscreens or on, we do things really well, but anyone can do them really well with the same. So why, how is it possible that this business has grown to that size and every other business, because by the way, we've had many try and they haven't. And the only answer I can come down to is leadership. And when I say leadership, I think it is about exactly what you're saying. It's about what is that overarching business purpose, but fundamentally, what are the leaders doing? How are they leading the organization? Are they linking to that purpose? Fine, they need to. But are they linking to something else, which is about, in our business, certainly, a recognition that without a totally engaged workforce on the front line, people who are going out at 2 o'clock in the morning and having to, in the freezing cold, and having to work outside, do they get up and want to do that? Are the call center operators engaged and wanting to, and recognizing that, and then doing what they need to do in the business to make sure that they get the best possible. But you can only do that if you connected, and if you're saying, actually, my job is not to create shareholder value. My job is to make the technician's job as easy and as seamless as possible. My job is to make the customer feel like they're going to go and tell 100 friends about this unbelievable service, completely surprising, from an automotive company, which was just such a great experience. That's their job. That's a very different job to, I'm here, I'm a leader, I'm the boss, and my job is to whatever, hit the budget.
It's a very different spirit,
Very different,
isn't it?
totally
very
different
much
spirit.
very much about enabling
It's enabling.
others. Yeah.
It's enabling others. And
Yeah.
it's about getting out of the way
Yeah.
and helping put in the place the things that are going to make.
Yeah.
And you see, I think that's about purpose. I genuinely do, because I think.
In what way? I mean, because we're talking here about purposeful leadership
Yes.
in the individual. I mean, tell us what you've learned about that. What does it take to be purposeful as a leader? What does it take? What have you found personally it takes, or in trying to spread that to your organization? What's difficult about it? You know, I mean, what's your experience of that dimension of purpose?
I mean, if you had to force me on one, listening would be about the best thing. You know, listening and lack of ego. This archaic, this bloody antiquated view that because you're a leader or that you've got all the answers. I mean, it is extraordinary. And again, I'm talking from experience. I've been promoted, therefore I know the answers. What a load of shit that is. And so this idea of listening, and by listening, I mean listening. I don't mean pretending to listen. And going into the business, and whether it's your customers, whether it's your people, whether it's your shareholders, but actually really trying to understand what it is that would help them. What it is. So for me, for sure, if I'm looking at what makes a great leader, I would say listening would be one of those key things.
So Gary, this thing about listening and the power of it, you know, really listening, deeply listening, not to yourself or your own thoughts or your own getting it right or your own showing that you've got the answers, but really listening to them, which I hear an echo of in the story you were telling about going out with the film cameras and listening what's meaningful to people. I mean, the audience could listen to that and say, actually, all right, I get it, but that's a leadership skill. You know, it can make sense to me, and that's your experience, and you put listening here, and other leaders might put decision making here, or vision, or strategic clarity. There's a whole host of things it could be. How does that relate to our conversation here about purpose?
I think it relates back to where we started, which is it's about you, and it's about, what are you trying? Why are you trying to make a difference? Why are you trying to do something different? And I think if we could build, and that's certainly what I tried to do at Belron, if I could build a cadre, and by the way, you can't do it just because it's you. You've got to get help, you've got to get support, you've got to get people like you. But if you could build a cadre of leaders who, yes, of course, they listened, and as you say, they did all of those things, but fundamentally were doing it for the reasons that we've talked about, which is not doing it to make money or even if they realized that what they were doing, if making money was important, that they couldn't do what they were doing and make money. You had to do things differently if you wanted to. And I think if you can develop that in your leadership capability, and you've got to start at the top, I'm afraid. That is one of those things. It's not something that you say, oh, this sounds like a great idea, let's try and pilot it down in a regional team. No, it has to be led from the top. But I think if you can get that leadership thing, and if you can get people linking into their own personal purpose, the things that they want to do, it just becomes much easier to then put it into the business.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've answered that.
Yeah, I think you have. I think one of the things that the listener would be interested in is, I know you and Belron as an organisation, you put a lot of thought into how to operationalise purpose, if I may say it that way.
Yeah.
You know, to make
Very
it
much so.
something that was kind of the way we do things around
Yes.
here. So, I mean, to
Yes.
name some of the things, asking leaders the question about what is meaningful to them.
Yes.
I know that when you start meetings,
Yes.
you're very deliberate to say, let's check in here, not just what's the purpose of the meeting, but what's my individual purpose as I come into this meeting. So you do that quite systematically.
Totally.
I'm just, I think
No,
there's
that's
things
exactly
that
right.
you do that make being purposeful not just accidental, but actually part of the way you.
Yes.
part of
And
the
you're
way
right.
you work.
And so what we did was, you remember that. We got every single team from around the world. We trained them. We went through all of this with them. And we operationalized it. I don't think there's any question. Now, would I like to do more of that? Absolutely. And that's something that you can never do enough of. You've got turnover, you've got all of that. But that's for sure. And so, using some of your examples, you're completely right. There is not a meeting in the last 10 years that I've been in with my team, no matter what the crisis, that we haven't started the meeting with a check-in. And the check-in is more than just saying, what is your purpose? It's like, how are you?
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
Yeah.
What are the things that are going on?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? How can we really... And sometimes that check-in takes 2 or 3 hours. Not often, but sometimes. Never once have we had a meeting where, even if that check-in bit took 2 or 3 hours, did we not achieve what we wanted to do. Because now that's operationalizing it. That's making it normal. But you've got to, you've got to do something about it. You can't just expect it to happen. It doesn't. So you need some skills. You need some tools, very importantly. And you need people to buy into that. And that takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes money. But you see, if you start where we said we started, which is we believe this, we really believe this, then those decisions about whether you should be spending all that time and money become much easier.
I know with you, and I'm sure that the viewer is getting a sense of it, is that you've got this deep commitment to bringing the human being into the meeting, bringing the human being into business. And so I imagine that that's really supported you, because there's a lot of pressure in meetings, isn't there? There's a big decision to make. You've got a lot of expensive resource around the table. There's such a pressure to dive into the content and just say, let's crack it. But you just had this, no. we're gonna actually really bring the human being in here. What's unsaid? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What's actually really going on here? And I'm wondering if that investment actually then you notice it paid off then in the quality of the meeting you were able to have, the quality of the decisions you reached as a team.
Absolutely. Because when you know where people are at the beginning of it, and listen, it's often completely unrelated to work.
Yeah.
So you start a check-in and people say, I'm actually feeling really sad today. My dog died yesterday. I know. Well, that just having that knowledge as an example, you can't tell them, well, you shouldn't be feeling sad, or tell them how to feel, or that you shouldn't be distracted. That is what it is. Yeah. But then certainly I can say, as a leader in that meeting, you kind of know then how to navigate the meeting. Yeah. And without a doubt, you get a better decision. Because if you didn't do that, and the guy's being a bloody introvert, miserable and not saying anything, you read in, you know what humans are like. All the mind talk goes on, well, he's obviously pissed off with what's happening. He doesn't like what we're discussing. He's not even talking about it. And I'm now getting really irritated, and you get into those cycles, and then that's it. And you come up with a bad decision. So honestly, I could think of hundreds of examples of just because we got in touch with where we were as individuals, that it just helps the meeting. and helps and makes it quicker, makes it much more effective, and you get a better decision. Big believer of that.
There's something else that I'd like to hear you speak about, Gary, around operationalizing things, is that I know you ran your business for many years using a quadrant, and that was, and still do, right, okay. And that was very much a part of how you made decisions. And I mean, could you describe to us how that worked and what the relation to purpose was in that quadrant?
It's funny you remind me. It's like so part of me now. I didn't even think of it earlier, but you're absolutely right. So, and it is linked to purpose, and I've kind of touched on it. But so listen. Here's the way I think about business: is that if you look after your customers, if you look after your people, if you contribute to society, you will get the results. And therefore, the fourth quadrant is your shareholders or your financial performance. Yeah. But you can't focus on one of those quadrants alone. Yeah. And I think this is really important because people might be looking at this thing and again saying, oh, it's all very well, he's successful in that. And I would, if you just focused on customers and on people, there's a very good chance you go bankrupt quite quickly. Very simple. So in our business, and by the way, again, we've made some of these mistakes. So every car that comes in, why don't we wash the car inside and out? Wouldn't that be it would be a brilliant customer experience.
And it would make a difference.
And it would make a difference and all of that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay, so we started doing that and we realized suddenly our job times were going up from 1.5 hours to 2 hours. Now, when you're employing 20,000 technicians, spending another 6 hours a day cleaning cars and not getting paid for it. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to work out that's not going to work. If you just focused on your people, why don't we just, give people increases of 10% every year? I mean, it's as bad for me, honestly, as just focusing on the numbers. And so we came up with this idea, which is let's look at our business through a lens of 4 quadrants: our customers, our people, society, and our shareholders. Yeah. And when you're making a decision, when you're thinking about things, do it through all 4. Yeah. Honestly, it's so simple, but it makes such a difference. Yeah. And obviously that is very much linked. So we've got a little diagram that we use, and that's in the middle, and our purpose is around then, because the two are totally linked. And that, I'm sorry, I bloody forgot this, but that is at the core of that. And so when you talk about operationalizing, that's the best example of operationalizing purpose. Yeah. And so everything we think about, wow, this is brilliant for our people, brilliant for our customers, brilliant for society. Yeah. It's going to cost us $2 billion to do. Well, we're not going to do it then.
Yeah. You make it sound very simple, Gary.
Yes.
And you lived it.
Yes.
And it just came to the heart of your business. But I do just want to underline that there is a raging debate, isn't there, in the business world, in the corporate world right now, because we've had this 40 or 50 years of the dominance of the Friedman model, where he said it's not a quadrant. No. He said, I'm going to give you, I think some people might say a threadbare, but I mean, who am I to say it's held for 50 years? I'm going to give you a justification for it being all about shareholder value. Yes. And I think people really wrestling with that. And of course you get, I think in the US, it's very difficult to move away from that. I think in Europe it's becoming more balanced. Yeah. That's my sense of it. I think that's right. And of course I'm generalizing. But what you're saying there is it's simple, but it's quite profound, isn't it? You're saying, no, Friedman, that's not where it is. There's never that for you. No. Actually, there's a way of creating an operational business model, a philosophy that holds those 4 things. I want to say, as you were doing it, when I watched your management teams, it looked to me like you were trying to hold them in balance.
Correct.
So one wasn't going off the scale to the detriment of the other.
Exactly. And it is about balance. Because, you can never...
But that's a completely different theory of the firm, isn't it? It's a completely different
theory. And I think where I see companies really struggling. So I talk about society as one of our quadrants. Well, I mean, we came up with that a long time ago. Then people started telling me about ESG and how important all of that is, and how in the environment. And I was saying, but can you tell me something new? Yes, well, yeah, that's what we mean, exactly the same thing. The problem is when you say, well, now we've got to bring in an ESG thing into our business, or we've really got to focus on that. I think it's a bit late. Because if it's not a fundamental part of what you do and what you believe. And so let's just talk about society. So giving back. Belron, we give back tens of millions every year, mostly raised by our staff on all various things, to communities that we work in and outside to make their lives better. That is such an easy... So let's even say that Belron ourselves gave that money to charities. Easy one in the tough times, and we've all been in tough times. Cut that. We've never done that. In the toughest of times, we've increased it. Why? It plays to staff engagement. People, I cannot tell you, people feel fantastic about working in a company that actually thinks broader than just the day-to-day. And they get engaged with charities. They go and see what a difference they can make. And they see that this is as a result of working in a brilliant place. So to be cynical even about that, does giving back...
Which you're not.
Which we're not at all. But if I'm trying to prove that to somebody, even if you don't believe what I'm saying, do it because you're going to increase your staff engagement. Do it because in Italy we used to run on a Saturday free repairs for anyone, free repairs. We charge for repairs, but every penny went to a local charity. I mean, it became the most popular. People used to come, what amazing business Carl Gloss is. These are guys working, not getting paid, not getting anything back, but they want to try and make a difference. And so you're right, keeping all of those bits in balance is the key thing. And I think that, I haven't really thought about this, but the Friedman model is focus on one quadrant very heavily, make that your outcome. And yes, certainly customers and people.
But they're serving that.
But they're serving that purpose.
What's different with you is that you weren't. You actually were committed to serving all of them.
Exactly.
That's quite a fundamental difference, isn't it? And I think that's something that does. I notice with me, I start getting a bit nervous when I see purpose. It's almost become the next tool to make more money, which is really anathema to what it's actually about.
It's about trusting it, and that's hard. And you can listen to me talking and say, okay, but it is about trusting it. And I can't say that I knew that this is how it was going to work out, but I so fundamentally believed it was the right thing. That I did, and we stuck with it, but it wasn't me. I mean, it was getting because honestly, when you were there, when you start talking about this stuff, people, oh my God, this is brilliant. And so getting people to, and then saying, trust us. Well, I'm worried, are we going to hit the budget? Forget about the bloody budget.
But you did. I mean, you used that term of flywheel earlier. You got that going in Belron, and it was sustainable. So you had the staff very engaged in the charitable work, and you have particular charities that I know are very dear to you. You had such a focus on the customer and really listening to the customer. You had that focus on the profitability. And you just got them all working with each other.
And I'll also add to that, because again, I think maybe listening to me, you think this is a soft, kind of easy place to be. I mean, we, as you know, measure everything. So we say we're interested in having an engaged staff. We survey our staff, at least 30,000 people. We measure our engagement scores, not only by country, by function, we compare customer service. We survey millions of customers. Our NPS scores are amongst the best, I would say the best in the world for any kind of a service company, in the high 80s. everything we do, we measure what impact we're having in our giving back. Whether we're having science-based targets for the environment or whether it's the impact that we're having on the charity. So this is not a soft thing. This is hard stuff.
Yeah.
And we measure, adjust, change, do all of that, and we think as much of it. So, you start with that nice purpose, and we're going to think about, but then you bloody make sure you're tracking it.
What you're telling us is that
That's operationalizing.
it's operationalizing, but also I think there's a nuance to what you're saying, Gary, which is that don't think that creating a purposeful organization is about sort of nicey or some kind of like laid back.
Absolutely.
It's not about that. It's like purposefulness really sits alongside a real focus, rigor, discipline, measurement. I mean, you saw those things as very complementary to one another.
You have to do them because otherwise, I think it disappears becomes marshmallow.
Yeah. I quite like marshmallow to be the last word of the video. You just can't go. You can't go better than marshmallow, can you? So, Gary, one of the things that I know people struggle with sometimes is how to actually define purpose. It can get people say it's nebulous, can't quite get my hands around it. I mean, just from your own engagement with it, I mean, if someone was to say to you, define it for me, Gary, what does it actually mean, this word? What would you say?
So I think I'd probably answer it differently if you were asking me what's a business purpose. So I mean, I think business purpose, I think is easier actually, because I think it's kind of your North Star. So it's not the thing that tells you what you're going to do. It doesn't even tell you how you're going to do it, but it does connect you to something which is high, which you never achieve because by its very nature, but it's really helpful, as exactly as I said, as a North Star, as a guide, as keeping you broadly in the right direction. And I think thinking about having a purpose, I think, is a good thing, and it is different for me to a vision or to a mission. It's more than that. It's more than both of those. Well, I think, I think vision and mission starts talking about what you're going to do in your business, and even if it's grand, and whereas purpose, bluntly, is why, it is why do you come to work? Why are we all here? Why are we as a group of colleagues why are we actually here? And just keep asking that why until you can't go any further. So I think that for me, so guiding star would be, I think, my best explanation of what a purpose is. Personally, I think it's a bit more. It's a bit more than that. It's about you as an individual. It's about what drives you. I mean, it's why are you here? And in that, you've got to answer some quite uncomfortable questions, but I think grappling with that and trying to get that, I think really is helpful, because sometimes, and I've seen that, when you really grapple, you realize I'm in the wrong place. This is not me. This is not for me. And even though all the things that appears on the cover or on the feel like they're me, they're not actually me. And so if you I don't know, I could think of lots of examples. So I think, so why? It's hard. It's really hard. But why do I want to be here? Why am I existing? It can never be for money. It can never be for reward or for improving my self-esteem. Those are all results of things. It's what is it that I'm here because I love seeing people grow. I'm here because I love, in my case, making a difference. So, and even at a very micro level. And I can tell you, I think about that. When I go into a one-to-one meeting, I think, how am I going to make a difference in this meeting? By the way, it's not always positive. But am I going to make a difference? Am I going to get the outcome to be something that is different But you kind of got to grapple with that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I've answered that.
Yeah.
I think one's easier than the other.
Yeah.
But it's worth. But the second one, definitely, I would go for
Yeah.
before anything.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things I noticed in your answer is you said, you don't get there. And in a sense, I think what you're speaking to, and you did, you speak to this quite consistently, is you make a distinction between an outcome, i.e. a result that actually happens,
Yes.
and purpose,
Yes.
which is why you engage in something.
Yes.
We might say, in my terms, I talk about an aim, aiming for something that's meaningful to you.
Yes.
Now whether that actually where you get there, well, that's in the fate of the gods, that will, or the fate of markets, or the fate. But actually, that's quite an important distinction, isn't it?
Very much so.
Because sometimes I find people get very confused between a purpose,
Yes.
i.e. an aim, something that's meaningful, why, as you keep saying, asking why, and an outcome or a result.
Exactly right. Yeah. Exactly. And even soft outcomes. I used one of earlier.
Yeah.
I'd like myself, my confidence to grow.
Yeah.
Well, that is an outcome.
Yeah.
Now, maybe it's hard to measure or whatever, but it is an outcome.
Still an outcome.
And it's not an aim.
Yeah.
It's not an aim.
Yeah.
It's it's not that North Star.
When you talk about guidance,
Yes.
you're talking about something that provides an energy, aren't you?
Definitely.
I mean, purpose
That's
as a
exactly.
source of energy
Purpose is
inside
energy.
yourself.
It's inside you.
Yeah.
And you can feel it. I mean, you really can feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel those moments, those days, those interactions, those meetings,
Yeah.
which are purposeful,
Yeah.
and those that aren't.
Yeah.
And by the way, if anyone thinks that every single interaction that I have is purposeful, well, then you shouldn't be watching this thing, because and I mean, it's just not possible. I mean, it's not human, and so I don't want to come across
Yeah.
like that. But when you think about it, and when
Yeah.
it's important, and when you know you've got to do it,
Yeah.
you know it. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't say anything.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's kind of like it's like being in love, isn't it, or something?
Absolutely.
I mean, describe it. Okay, that's one thing, but you know it.
You
When
know
you're
it.
in it.
Exactly
Okay,
right.
you know that feeling.
Correct.
So what you're saying to us is, you know that feeling of being purposeful.
Yes.
You know what it
You
feels
do.
like, where something matters.
And it's that
to
energy.
you.
You're right.
It's an energy.
It is about
Yeah. Yeah.
how energetic you're feeling.
Yeah.
It comes out in people's voices. It comes out in
Yes.
the way they come across.
Yes. Yeah.
All of that kind of thing.
And in their creativity,
Their creativity,
and in their
yeah.
focus,
Correct.
and in their, as you were saying before, also it's not soft. It's also in their willingness to take hard
Exactly.
decisions,
Absolutely.
do difficult things,
Absolutely.
or be challenging.
Be challenging. Be
Yeah.
Be thoughtful. Be purposeful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very much so.
So Gary, you were just joking before, but I think a serious joke that it's not possible to be purposeful all the time.
No.
It's as human beings.
Yes.
We sometimes are and we sometimes
Yes.
aren't. And I know in the work that we've done together with you and with your leadership communities that we focus quite a lot on state. What state are you in? Are you in a purposeful state, or are you not?
Yes.
I mean, could you say something to us about your own experience of working with your own state?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an important thing, and I do use it all the time. And you're right. I mean, you're never in a purposeful state all the time. So just to reiterate that, I find it really helpful when I'm not in a purposeful state to try and work out. So if I'm in an interaction with someone, and I'm feeling like we're not either making progress, or I'm irritated. That's normally the thing.
It's like a clue for you.
It's a
isn't
clue.
it?
I get irritated,
Yeah.
and immediately my irritation is about the other person.
Yeah.
That's the big clue, because I know actually the reason I'm irritated it's got nothing to do with the other person. It's something about me.
Yeah.
And I mean, using your language, I'm kind of in S1. I'm in that unpurposeful state,
Yeah.
and I find that really, really helpful. So just firstly recognizing what state are you in right now
Yeah.
helps me work out what's going to happen next year.
Yeah.
And am I going to stay in this state and remain irritated and remain blaming somebody else? And listen, seriously, it is hard sometimes to snap yourself out. But it is helpful to just do that work. And this is where, I mean, I think we were talking earlier about operationalizing is learning stuff, learning tools, learning techniques primarily, about saying, I'm irritated, I'm grumpy, I'm ratty. It's not me. I mean, sorry, it's not the other person. It's not, and it's not the context even. There's something that's gone on with me. What is that? And trying to just unravel that. Sometimes you can, and if you get good at it, you can do it quite quickly. But often you can't. But even then, it's quite helpful for me, because then I know, okay, I know I'm feeling like this. I know it's not right, but I know it at least. It's not like you just then go off and, do the wrong things.
But this is the discipline part, isn't it? Of, and you said this is the part that being purposeful is not soft. So what you're talking about here is noticing what state you're in. And you say for you, it's actually really helpful when you notice you're not in a purposeful state. And you actually discipline to listen for clues like irritation or impatience. And then you're talking about a leadership. I'd say a leadership responsibility even to say, my state is not about external. My state is about me. And so you notice it. Now, when you've noticed it, what do you do next? What's the next step in that process?
It's not always the same, but I try and do something about it. I mean, when I'm lazy, I think, well, I know that I'm a bit, and I know that it's not about the other person. I mean, by the way, this stuff for me is not just about business. I mean, I use this in my personal life, and I mean with my kids, and those times when you're feeling grumpy and ratty. And actually, I mean, there was a good example the other day with my daughter, and I suddenly just stopped myself. This has got nothing to do with her. But I'd made all these stories up that was all about, it was nothing to do with her. And so what do? I do the work, and I say, okay, what is it? What are those? And it's usually some stuff going on in your head, some talk that you've convinced yourself, and you've made all these stories. And you've used these techniques about thinking, well, is it true? Is it false? Or is it and you can do that really quickly. I mean, I've found that. And actually, honestly, when you do that and you make that realization, it's quick. It's quick. Now, do I do it every time? No. I mean, I don't do it every time. But particularly when I'm very grumpy or very ratty, and I think, what is going on here? Then I do try. It's not even snapping out of it, but it's just acknowledging a little bit. And particularly, and this is where the hard stuff comes, acknowledging, guess what? It's about you. It's about me. It's about me. It's not about anyone else. And why am I feeling like that? And then you kind of go through, and sometimes you can get out of it. Sometimes you can't or don't want to.
I do think, Gary, I mean, I hope it's inspiring for people to hear that, here you are as a CEO for 23 years. You're leading an organization with 32,000 people across these. And what you're telling us here is that you have a discipline to show up in a way, in a purposeful state. And you don't do that all the time, not by any means, but you're giving your attention to noticing when you're irritated or grumpy or frustrated or whatever it might be, to notice that, and then to do work inside yourself, which starts from quite a fundamental, this is about me, my state is about me. And then you've got tools and techniques, you examine your mind, you falsify what you're telling yourself, and then what, with the purpose to what? I mean, presumably to come out into those conversations, meetings, engagements with a different spirit, I'm imagining.
Exactly right. And I think where it gets even more powerful is, we talked again about operationally earlier, is when you've got your people around you who can do the same thing. And so that you can have those really honest conversations and say, Darren, it looks like there's something going on. What's happening? Because I know it looks.
You seem irritable.
You seem grumpy with me, and you seem irritable. So what? And you say, well, because I thought that what you were coming to discuss was X, and I thought And I say, well, is that true? And certainly that happens in my team a lot. You have those kind of very direct conversations. Oh shit, sorry. let's get going.
It does show, though, doesn't it, in this conversation, what an enormous universe purpose covers, really. Because we've got, from one hand, you have 32,000 people who know what Belron's purpose is and how you orientate the whole organization. But we're bringing it right the way down to teams, one conversation, and ultimately,
actually, not even a conversation. How you feel?
I notice what you're doing with your finger is actually, it comes to me, and I just don't know if viewers would really get that. Actually, purpose is really in the micro, isn't it? It really does come right down to, why am I in this conversation, and what state am I in? Am I in a purposeful state? Am I actually really connected to it? And am I actually taking responsibility for myself in this particular moment?
That's exactly right. And the bad news, the tough news, you've got to do this work yourself. I was having lunch the other day with a friend, actually, and he was asking me about purpose and how brilliant it was. And he said, can't you just help me? I'm looking for. I said, I wish I could, but I can't. You've got to do that work yourself, and you've got to explore that, and So
there's no blue pill, red pill.
There's no. I'm afraid not. And you know me, Darren, well. I love the quick fixes. I love the quick fixes, and I did learn there isn't one on this. I mean. But to what I've said earlier, when you get it, then there are lots of quick fixes. We've just described some of that. It's quick. You work it out really quickly. You get your team working really quickly. You do a check-in, and you accelerate how you're going to do, the things you're going to do.
Well, that's an important point, isn't it? Is that you're not working on your state, either yourself or the team, just because it feels good, even though it does, doesn't it? Because it's no fun being irritated or grumpy or disconnected or distracted. It's actually not us in our. You feel it. But I think it's an important thing you're saying, and I'd be curious to hear what your experience of this is that when you do that, you actually get more efficiency, you get better decisions out the other side. So it's an investment made for something.
Correct. And the added benefit, you feel good. You feel that energy. And I can particularly relate to that when I'm in the social environment. Sometimes you go into social, particularly, and oh God, why am I at this drinks thing? And you just do a bit of work on yourself, and guess what? It turns into quite a pleasant, nice time.
Because as you were reminding us earlier, purpose is always there, isn't it? You've just got to look for it. You've got to ask for it, or connect to it, sometimes you might say.
And I think if you can't, and if you've done that work and you can't, get out of there. Get out of the place. Seriously, get out of the company. Get out of the social environment. Get out of the relationship. Because if you've done the work, I'm not saying do that, but if you've done the work, and I often say that, certainly I used to say that a lot to Belron, if you can't connect to our purpose, and that's about you, and listen, I'm not, this is not a religion, it's not a cult, but if you can't, genuinely, this is not going to be the place. It really isn't. And that,
I mean, did you, Gary, in the time, did you have people deselecting Belron because, for example, they wanted more focus just on shareholder value, or they wanted more focus on community at the other end of the scale? Did you have people saying...
A little bit, but again... without blowing our own trumpet here, I mean, our recruitment process is rigorous. And guess what? You won't be surprised. What is the rigor? The rigor is about trying to see, have we got the right connection? Have we got the right values? Have we got the right purpose? And so it's quite hard to get into Belron if you're going to be misaligned on those things. And I always say misaligned because that's our alignment. I'm not saying that it's the alignment. There are many highly successful companies, much more successful than Belron, that don't do this stuff. So this is not, I'm just saying this is more fun, more engaging, more purposeful, But to answer your question directly, yes, of course. And typically it's interesting, and you use those, so it's people who say, oh, you told us it's a customer-focused company, and I'm trying to bring in all these brilliant customer initiatives, and they keep getting squashed or stopped, or we haven't had too many of saying, I can't believe you don't focus on the numbers as much as you should, because actually I just say, well, have a look at our numbers. You're right, I don't focus on them, but by the way. Back to the beginning of the discussion, on all the metrics, not on one, not on profit or on sales. Look at our customer service scores. Look at our people engagement scores. Look at what we're doing in the environment. So those are the results that we look at. And by the way, just on that again, incentive plans, bonuses are always on the 4 quadrants.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about the 4 quadrants is you operationalize it, didn't you? So it got measured, but also it targets reflected that.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's great, isn't it? You say, oh, with 4 quadrants and all of that, but your bonus is based on the profit. So, I mean, But you won't believe how many companies do that. By the way, we do that sometimes as well. So further down the organisation, we haven't operationalised it. So we tell people all of this, they all buy into it, and then we say, but your bonus is based on sales, or it's on profit, or it's on growth, or all those are outcomes. Or just on customer service. Well, if that's your only metric, honestly, you're going to go down you're going to go down the blind alley.
Yeah. So, I mean, Gary, here you are. Is like you've been very generous talking about your experience of Belron, but that is more in the rear view mirror for you now, isn't it? And you're moving into this next stage of your career, of your life.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a bit about what you're moving into? And I'm curious about what part purpose is playing in this part of your life as you move, move away from Belron and hand the reins to Brito. And
so I could say a few things, but again, you're not going to be surprised. It has played a massive part. So the first thing I'm going to say, I've been in this, I gave you my story. This company's been in my family. It's been in my blood from the day I was born. I stepped away 6 weeks ago after 35 years, but actually after 64 years, because, I mean, from the day I remember, the business was talking about. And so I think it would be perfectly reasonable to expect me to have some regrets, and let me tell you something. Now, I'm still a shareholder, and I have 0 regrets. Why? Purpose. Purpose. That's why. That's why.
Well, say more. Where's your attention going?
So a few years ago, I worked out that that my time should come to an end. Firstly, I never wanted anyone to tap me on the shoulder and tell me that, and so I worked that out, and so I decided that I wanted to move on. But then you really do go through your existential crisis, because you say, but this has been my life, literally my life. Now I'm facing something that's, so you go back and say, what's my purpose? And my purpose is making a difference. And so what I came up with, and it took a while, not very long, was number one, sticking to what I've been telling you. Numbers and results are actually not important to me. And nor is massive wealth. And I have been extremely lucky, and I say lucky, that I've accumulated huge amounts of wealth because of the performance of the business through various long-term incentive schemes. I fundamentally don't agree with that. I mean, this is more a personal thing. I don't agree that anyone should have this amount of wealth. Because, and people say, but you deserve it. You've done, no. Nurses deserve it. Doctors, teachers. That I don't. And so when I made that decision, then actually things started saying, well, okay, what's my purpose? My purpose is making a difference. And so I got my kids together, 3 of them, and I said, guys, you know what? I'm thinking of giving all of my money away. When I say all of my money, I don't want to, again, sound like an arse here. I live in a beautiful apartment.
Yeah.
I'm going to have great holidays.
Yeah.
I'm not going to
get quite all of it, but
yes, but in the high 90s,
right, okay,
I'm going to give
Yeah.
all of that away.
yeah,
My kids completely fine with it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, more than fine. My youngest, Jack, every time, have you put everything already into the foundation? Have you put all your money? He keeps saying, you got to, you got to do that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm doing. So I'm taking all of my money
yeah,
and I'm creating we've created a foundation which is going to be trying to make a bigger difference. So all I'm doing bluntly is I'm taking everything I've learned at Belron, everything I've learned about purpose in particular, and I'm now going to try it on a different stage, grander, bigger ambitions, bigger, but it's the same kind of stuff.
yeah,
And so, and honestly, we talked about energy earlier
yeah,
and getting into the right state. Wow, this gets me in the right state and you can see even now how the way I'm talking about it, you can feel it. You know, when I was talking earlier about purpose being a guide and aim.
There's also a result now.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and I want to have fun. You know, I mean, we haven't talked much about fun. At Belron, I had fun every day.
Yeah,
And you talk to people.
yeah,
I mean, we had fun.
yeah,
And I mean, that also helps.
Yeah.
That makes, and I want to do the same.
yeah.
I want to do the same now.
Well, it was no accident that you had fun, was it? Because you said people matter,
Yes.
however you are.
Yeah.
And actually, you were willing for people to be sad, grumpy. In fact, you wanted to know.
Yeah.
But I think because of that, you encourage the lightness as well. And that, you know, I know it's important to you. You like to have a laugh and a joke, don't you? And kind of, you know, that's part of the music of your day.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah. But it didn't happen by accident, did it? You know, it was.
Well, yeah, probably not. But I mean, it wasn't it was one of those things. It wasn't a policy.
It wasn't a strategy.
We have to have fun.
Strategy.
Exactly.
60 pages.
Correct. Yeah, the fun strategy. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
So back to your
Yeah.
so the purpose stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, here's my document I was showing you earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing I've done, I've been doing this first thing I did was think about purpose.
Yeah. So in this new venture for Gary, just to show you hot off the press, this day, the first thing he's gone for is purpose.
I love it.
It's great, isn't it? It's great.
And that's draft, yeah.
But you really can feel your energy, Gary. I mean, it's like I was saying, I was joking to you about retirement. You're using that word, but it doesn't feel like that.
Next chapter.
It's the next chapter of your purpose.
Yes.
Expressed it's manifest in
a different way.
You know?
Totally. Yeah.
And I just want to say, you know, human to human, it's very inspiring hearing you talk about what you plan to do with, you know, with the money that you've made.
Yeah.
Which you recognise came from, you know, the work of many.
Yep.
You know, and now here you are wanting to use it for the benefit of future generations.
Correct.
You know, and migrants. You know, it speaks particularly to your family history.
Yeah.
But also to youth.
Exactly.
To childhood development. Things that matter to you.
Exactly.
But we're not talking about down there. We're
talking about now.
Yeah.
This day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly right.
Well, I'm sure everybody listening to this and watching this, Gary, is going to wish you all the best with spending your money. And, you know, spending money is not an easy thing, always.
I'm finding that, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you want to do it purposefully.
Yeah, that's the thing, is you're spending it purposefully to things that matter to you, that give you energy and have meaning for you.
Correct.
And that's probably, I mean, that's probably in its essence the heart of purposefulness, isn't it? Is doing things that matter to you, that have meaning for you, create an energy inside. In a way, I think it's the perfect way for us to complete our interview together.
Now, you know that I always like having the last.
Please do.
Because I would say the same. And so, Darren, if I didn't meet you, would I be sitting here today? Maybe. I don't know. But probably not. And so, honestly, the work that we did together initially, remember sitting in Primrose Hill, And the work that we then subsequently did as Belron, I hope I've described the impact that that's had. And I think you and your team should feel as proud as I do about what we've done at Belron and what I'm going to hopefully do now, because you need to take as much credit as anyone else. So thank you.
Thank you, Gary.